Hi everyone, welcome to Amateur Decorating Like a Pro. I am Catherine.
Now to me, spring represents freshness, flowers, and everything turning green again. And that's what I wanted on my dining room table, even if it meant using faux flowers. Let's go ahead and go to work. Now, even the tiniest of moss flower pots can be $10, and that won't hold as much as you think. So I decided to get a little creative on my dining room table. You know these supplies, you see them right here. They are from the Dollar Tree. I'll have a complete list in the information box of this video for you. Now I'm using my utility scissors to trim away the lip around the top of the plastic flower pot. And this stuff is really soft, guys. There's no straining. The only reason why I'm wearing gloves is I'm also double dipping with another project, which is an upholstery project. So I cut my finger. And since it's all bandaged up, I don't want to take the risk of getting an infection, but I'm stubborn and I have to do a DIY, so I just decided to put on gloves. Now the goal here is to trim away the lip. Now you may have to go around the top at least twice to do that. And if it should crack, don't worry about that. You're gonna put some hot glue on it and it's not going to affect the end result. It's still going to be beautiful. Now, just like I did in the very first video, you want to cut your moss into a variety of shapes and sizes. Some small, some large, some lengthwise, and some horizontally. Just mix it up. Now, I'm only spearing these moss pieces about 3/4 of the way, and then I'm cracking them open. So I am not spearing them all the way through. And it's just a simple little pop open, and then it just breaks away. Now, I wasn't specific of how many bags of these moss pieces that it took to complete the earlier project, but I'm going to tell you now. It took me 9 bags of moss to cover this flower pot. And then I put 3 of them inside of the pot, and you'll see that later. So now we're completing the sides, the longer side of the pot, and again just hot glue and then attaching them. You're starting toward the very bottom and then working your way up, but not completely toward the top. I discovered a little trick that saves me some time. So guys, just fill this side up, add enough glue, and notice I'm not crunching them this time. I'm only going to do that technique when I get to the corner of the flower pot so that the moss piece will curve around the corner, just like the pot is curving. Now here's my little tip for adding the moss pieces to the top of your flower pot. You do not crack it open, just spear it enough for it to slide along that edge. What a great discovery, huh? You're basically covering the inside and the outside at the same time, and then just kind of wiggle it back and forth. So I was really happy with this discovery because it saves me lots of time. And then I just add my little hot glue on the outside and slide on those pieces. I love that idea. Now don't add the hot glue to the pieces at the very top of your flower pot until you're completely done with the areas below. You want to be able to slide those back and forth so they'll fit wherever you need them. Now this side of the flower pot does not have a straight edge, so I have to wiggle my moss pieces just a little bit to get them to slide on. Now this is starting to take shape. I love the result. All I have to do now is secure those pieces around the top of the flower pot. Add a little hot glue and slide those pieces onto the glue. So now I don't have to worry about the pieces along the edge moving around. I can go ahead and fill in the rest of the flower pot. Now, just like I did earlier with the topiaries, I took a small piece of moss and I rolled it into a little ball, and then I inserted it into those small spaces. This time around, I'm adding a little bit of hot glue to those spaces because I'm going to be moving this moss pot around, so I don't want those to fall out. But once you push that little tiny piece of moss in place, it's going to stay there. And that's how I'm able to fill in all of the smaller spaces. Let's go a little slower so you can see exactly what I'm doing. Now, just in case you haven't seen the DIY for the moss tree topiaries, I'm going to go ahead and link that video to this video. It will be in the iCard in the top right hand corner and in the description box of this video. Now, I would normally use my thumb to push this small piece into place. However, I'm using hot glue, and then secondly, I'm wearing these gloves. So guys, you can use a plastic spoon or a plastic knife, something with a very smooth tip. Just like I mentioned earlier in the topiary video, this step is optional. You can leave it as is and just color in any white styrofoam either with a Sharpie, or you can just use that evergreen paint. But you can also just take these little tiny pieces and lay them over the seams and push them in with that very smooth side of the knife, not the sharp side, because then you would be cutting into it. And you see how neat that looks? And don't worry about those little white pieces of styrofoam. They'll just brush away for you. And by the way, that bag of moss came from Michael's last year. Now, if you feel like your moss pot is a little hairy from all of the little moss stems, just use your scissors and give it a little haircut. It'll be just fine. Okay guys, I've been as detailed as I possibly could when it comes to making the moss covered flower pot. So now let's move on to the floral arrangement. Now, of course, we're using 3 large floral foams here in the middle. They're glued to each other, and then they're glued to the bottom of the flower pot. On the sides, I had 2 smaller cuts, shall I say, on the sides. That way those larger ones don't move around. And of course, I'm going to insert flowers into them. Whoops, I forgot to turn on the camera before I started to work, so I had to backtrack just a little bit. But there are about 15 floral bouquets that fill this floral pot. There are roses, which are 2 of them, 5 lilies, 5 daisies, I believe 1 begonia, but that did not come from the Dollar Tree, and 2 Freesias. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And I'm using those 2 Freesias to anchor it on the sides because they're such a long, slender plant. All right, so I checked the dictionary, and he said, Freesia. So that means I said it correctly. All right, so you want to basically apply those Freesia on the outsides so that because they're so long and slender, they kind of hang over the sides of the pot. Now see how close your bouquets are together? So it makes it nice and full. I think it looks really pretty. It's really a garden that you could walk through and just fall in love. Now, it is my desire to have green all over the table, or as much as I can in the centerpiece. So I inserted lemongrass in the center of the floral arrangement. And then I just made sure that those were spread out, because sometimes you can get those and they're just so stiff and straight that it really doesn't add anything to the floral arrangement. But when you spread them out, they look more natural. Well, lastly, I needed some ground cover, as we say here in the South. I added a few packets of those moss decorative pieces to the inside of the floral pot to cover up that foam. And with all of that being said, my friends and family, here is my 2017 spring tablescape. Well, now you can see why I was so in love with making moss tree topiaries and this moss flower pot. So the colors are white and green and aqua. And you know that those are Dollar Tree glassware. And yes, these peacock plates, they came from TJ Maxx. I think it was the very first thing that I put on Instagram. I don't know if it's been a year ago or more, but yeah, I've had them for a while and I've never ever used them. My chargers are from Michaels. You know how they are. Buy two, get one free, very inexpensive. And I am using a very light aqua napkin. And inside of it, yes, is a Dollar Tree egg. It's the ones that remind you of the Waterford crystal eggs. And for sure, those eggs will have jelly beans inside of them. And before I forget, those little round moss balls there, they are Christmas ornaments. They just work so well, I decided, hey, you're going on the table. And I'm proud to say that my white table runner is a folded tablecloth. So friends, if you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much. I know it's a little long because I combined the Tablescape as well as the DIY of the centerpiece, but I wanted to hurry and get to the next phase of projects which have to do with furniture. And I just love a good furniture DIY. If you're not a subscriber, please consider doing so. And remember to turn on your notifications so you don't miss a single video. Thanks a lot for watching. And as always, stay in prayer and stay creative.